Okay, so the question that we're answering is, I'm struggling with my husband learning how to be more mature and finding himself. Most of the time, I feel excluded, a lack of emotional intimacy, and like my husband is on a single track of his journey. When we are single, most of us, before we took on a spouse, had a decent version of self-development. My assumption is that one of the reasons you married the person you married is it appeared that they were a developing human and that they were a pretty decent person when you met them. Otherwise, you would not have married them. You married them with an assumption that this would continue. All right, you've gotten this good enough for me to want to marry you. I'm going to assume you're going to continue on this process. If you look in the rearview mirror, you did the same. You did a lot of personal development and you have wanted to continue it, but if you haven't noticed, when you have a boy in your house, let alone your bedroom, your personal development rituals can be disrupted. Like he wants to hold hands while you want to read your scriptures. He wants to make out while you're trying to say your prayers. And you're like, hello, I'm trying to do my work here. I'm trying to move my life forward here. And then this might be shocking, but there's a possibility you've been disruptive to his systems because there's a cute girl in the house and you're funner to talk to than saying my prayers, and etc., etc. And so it's not uncommon for personal development systems to fall apart at the very time that you need them. Now, I don't really know what goes on in girl brains with respect to, I have these really cool thoughts in my head. I think I will say them out of my mouth because that's what we do with other people. We move thoughts out of mouth, share with people, and then we share them together. The idea of sharing my personal development system with another person never even occurred to me. Why would you do that? Partially because I was raised with 8 brothers, and if you share that with brothers, they don't usually have an edifying response to it. They usually have some unedifying comments about your personal development stuff. We try to call it trash talk, but it could be also labeled as shaming or some version of that when it's not edifying. And then you do know, ladies, that anytime a man shares his personal development information with a woman, it is telling you that I have weaknesses. You do know we don't want you to know that, because if you know we have weaknesses, you're going to know we have weaknesses, and that's a problem. Okay, now what we don't know is that you actually feel security when a man sees his weaknesses. That took me 10 years to be convinced of that one. You feel safer when I see what's wrong with me. I'll have Markel explain that one in a few minutes. Like, what? Why would you feel safer if I can tell you what's wrong with me? And she's nodding. Okay, yeah, that's a thing, okay? Oh, we got Crystal giving hearts on that one. Sparkly hearts on that one. I guess, ladies, if you're not comfortable having your face on the screen, that's fine. But there's all those little emoji buttons. Those are helpful. I can see what you're thinking, Phil. There's like 8 or 10 of them you can choose from. That works for me. I can deal with that. Ah, see? Doing the laughing cry one. Okay, that works for me. And okay, not too many of those. I have ADHD, that's distracting. So I live in a fantasy world, and I invite you to join me in this fantasy world where men are empowered with tools they did not know they could use. But I want to warn you on how this works. So I worked with this ambitious husband who really wanted to get it right. We sat down with this DPAR thing, this Discover, Plan, Act, Reflect cycle. He and I did we probably spent 2 hours cranking through this, writing it up. He was sweating bullets. He's agonizing. This is so hard to move my thoughts onto paper. I have to use complete sentences. I said, you don't have to. Most women can read scribble. Okay, you can do it by hand. Most women can get your point, get your drift to some degree. Just try to get something next to each blank. And so we finally had it finished. The wife came in on the next visit. We sat down together. We walked through the entire thing, and she was singing the Christmas Hallelujah songs. Oh my gosh, this is what I've been waiting for. This is so wonderful. I feel so close to you. All those other weird girl things that women say. And he's looking at her like, that's weird. I don't know why this is exciting for you, but she's loving it. I was aware that she would frequently ask him to share his feelings with her. Most common question she would ask. I just want to know what's going on for you and what your feelings are. And when she said, this is what I've hoped for so long, I says, I'm glad we found what you needed, but let me tell you why it's taken me so long to teach men how to do this. I want you to look really closely at this DPAR form that we filled out. Did you notice that there's not one expression of feelings in the entire document? At no point did he say anything about his feelings. He reflected, here's what I'm getting right, here's what I'm getting wrong. He wrote down his discovery work. I looked for this, I researched that, I found this, I discovered this, I added it to it. Here's my plans. I'm not going to work on this, intentional neglect. I am going to work on this. And here's my plan for execution to act upon it. Here's what I'm not working on, intentional neglect list. and here's my scheduled date to review it. We carefully looked through it, and there was zero expression of feelings. But I confirmed with her, this was meaningful to you? This is exactly what you're hoping for? She said yes. So ladies, I want to warn you about this really weird phrase. I want to know your feelings on this. Because what you really want is, what the heck is going on in here, even if it's not feelings? That has been my observation. You're welcome to tell me differently because I've never been a woman and you can explain it to me. But oh, I got a sparkly heart. When I finally started understanding how to teach men, you're not going to find enough information inside your feeling system for it to be useful to the woman. You know, ladies, they all have that 8 coloring box of feelings, like yellow, red, orange. How are you feeling? Sad. How are you feeling? Happy. How are you feeling? Sad. Happy? He's only got 2. That's his only 2 feelings he's ever noticed in himself. But you don't get a lot of information with that.
I would like to add that a better question is, I want to know what your plan is. And this gives us insight into their thoughts and feelings, and it'll open them up. Now, because again, as Maurice said, when men are sharing, that opens them up to be very vulnerable. And they really do want to preside, they want to provide. And if they haven't been doing it right, they are often very hesitant to move into sharing. And they don't really grasp why that's so important. And if they are in the point of the recovery enough that they can share that, then we know that they're moving forward, and it creates that safety for us because we know where they're at. The problem is many of them, because they've got a lot of fear and shame still going on, they tend to go right into the blaming and the denial and shifting it back on us and not really taking that responsibility. And that's why we have the weather check. It shows, okay, that's where they're at, and then that's where we need to go do our work, because I call it holding the space so that we are not entering into contention. We can just observe, okay, that's where he's at. He's not ready to be able to do that yet. So now what do I need to do to go create safety for myself, stability for myself? That's why the worth groups are so amazing, is because it is a safe place to share, where you're understood, and where we can encourage one another, gather tools and resources to help us while we are waiting. And sometimes it's very long. And one thing that I like to do is to give hope that if you keep doing your work, if your husband keeps doing his work, you both keep showing up, you actually can get to that place. I would say between my husband and I, it was very impossible, and I thought we would never be to that point. As you are patient, it can happen. So again, going back to why do we want to know what his plan is or where he's at, is because that is actually helping us to feel safe. And if they can generate that, that is where we can actually feel more safe, trusting him more and trusting ourselves. And it is a process, and it does take time. There is support. You don't have to do it alone.